voting 嗰啲定不過你知你應該，不過你所以香港有少少自由。
OK， 好，各位同事，我哋呢個
Members, let's resume the meeting of the Bills Committee on Securities and Futures Amendment Bill 2013, and we've also got a quorum here. After consideration, I believe that we should vote again, to be fair, because the relevant disclosure of interest will impact on both candidates. I don't know whether it will make a difference on members' voting inclination, but I believe there will be some implications to the candidates. So I will destroy the votes here, the ballots here.
All
right, have we all cast our votes? All right, then voting is closed. Please collect the ballot papers. May I invite the two candidates or nominators of the two candidates to come out to supervise the counting of votes, Mr. Wong Ting-kwong and Mr. Sin Chung-kai.
得幾張唔使啦。2號。OK， 4個。2號咧就3個。OK， 得。好，我而家宣布。
All right, I now announce the results. Mr. Kam-lam, 4 votes. Mr. Kenneth Leung, 3. There is 1 abstention. I declare Mr. Kam-lam elected.
OK， 嗱。
All right. Since, well, I should have handed the chair to Mr. Kam-lam, but since he's absent, I have to first ask members whether we have to elect a deputy chairman. If yes, I can continue to chair the election process because Mr. Cham is absent. Otherwise, we have to elect someone to be the chairman of this meeting first. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I believe we need a deputy chairman. This bill is a few inches thick and is also highly technical in nature, so we do need a deputy chairman. Mr. Sin Chung Kai proposes that we have a deputy chairman. All right. So do we all agree? Any objection? So are we nominating a candidate? No, I'm asking whether we need to elect a deputy chairman. Any objection? Agree. All right. All agree. All right. All right, nominations. I nominate Mr. Kenneth Leung. Do you accept, Mr. Leung? I do. Any seconder? Because I have somebody else in mind, so I cannot second that. But I second. Any seconder? Mr. Leung Sing seconds. All right. Do you accept Mr. Kenneth Leung? I do. Any other nomination? Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, I nominate Mr. Chung Wah-fung. All right. Mr. Zhang, do you accept? I do. Any seconder? Mr. Chang Kim Po. All right. There are two candidates. Any other nominations, please? No. Nomination is closed. We'll now dish out the ballot papers. All right, Mr. Kenneth Leung, number 1 on the ballot paper, and Mr. Christopher Chow, number 2. Have we all got a ballot paper? So if you have already indicated your choice, voting is closed. The ballot papers are now will now be collected. Sorry, the voting is closed. All right. Nominating members of the two candidates, please come to supervise the counting of votes. Ms. Wong Ting Kwong, Mr. Sin Chung Kai.
我睇下我清晰哦，呢個清晰，呢個
清晰，議員清晰，我同意嘅。
4-3-1。1號係3票，2號係4票，有一位係棄權。
棄權 ，OK 得，好我宣佈結果就。
All right. Number 1, Kenneth Leung, 3 votes, and Mr. Christopher Chung, 4 votes. 1 abstention. So Christopher Chung will be our vice chair. I'll hand over to Mr. Chung. Mr. To. Mr. Chen Kam-lam is not here. Can you chair the meeting this time? Well, according to the rules, I have to hand the chair to the vice chair or the chairman. So if you are absent, then members present will elect someone to chair the meeting. Some members may be otherwise engaged and so cannot chair a meeting. And this sometimes happens, and in that case, members present will elect someone, a member, to chair the meeting. All right, Mr. Chung, if in the middle of the meeting you have some urgent matters to attend to, we can end the meeting early after discussion with members. And if members agree to continue with the meeting, we can elect someone present to chair the meeting.
換咗茶佢啦，幫佢。我得，我冇問題嘅，我會協助你嘅嚇。你請坐。唔該。咁咧，其實個參考資料都介紹咗㗎啦。咁我哋已經盡咗選咗主席呢一部分啦。咁而家咧，你就邀請咧政府當局咧就入嚟。咁就首先咧就做翻個條例個簡介先。咁佢哋今日咧就係佢哋做簡介，冇錯，一個 PowerPoint 嘅。咁要請佢哋簡介。咁咧今日要最重要要處理嘅問題咧就係、我諗咧就係、因為一般咧條例草案咧我哋都會咧係接見公眾人士同埋業界，俾佢哋發表意見嘅。今日有冇啊？今日未有，因為要委員會去同意。咁我哋可能喺9月下旬啦，因為嚟緊放暑假啦，未必所有委員同埋我哋都需要啲時間去邀請公眾人士發表意見啦。咁所以咧可能都要問一問其他委員意見，可唔可以9月底？咁我哋定一次會或者2次啦，睇下情況反應。即係政府解釋咗之後，係啦，咁我哋考慮呢一樣嘢。咁最後咧就睇下要唔要定一個時間表。咁如果時間表唔定都唔緊要，因為可能要等下主席翻嚟再決定啦。咁我諗今日最重要咧就係俾政府同埋證監解釋咗，然後咧就請委員定一個公聽會嘅時間，咁就得㗎。就咁得。咁就可以話我哋就請政府啲入嚟啦，好冇？呢度已經做咗啦，我哋部分選咗主席同埋副主席啦嘛。咁呢度就係啦，邀請政府，我哋請佢政府入嚟先啦。好啊，咁啊。
All right. This is my first time to hold a meeting, to chair a meeting. I'd like to get your support. Let's invite the administration in to take us through the paper. And then members will be asked to raise questions.
呢張喎，同埋呢個，4個都有。哦。主要係財經事務及庫務局啦，同埋金管局同證監嘅代表嘅，同埋3類嘅代表。哦。好啦，即係。
First of all, I'd like to welcome Ms. Selina Yan, Deputy Secretary for FST, and Mr. Jerry Chung, Acting Principal Assistant Secretary for FSTB, and Mr. Rico Leung, Senior Director of SFC. Welcome. And can you take us through the paper on the S&F Amendment Bill 2013, which is about regulating OTC derivative market in Hong Kong? Ms. Yan. Now, this meeting is to discuss the Securities and Futures Amendment Bill 2013. The bill is to provide for a regulatory framework for the OTC derivative market in Hong Kong. We hope via the amendment we can regulate OTC derivative product market. The SFA and Hong Kong MA had conducted 2 consultation exercises. When we drafted the bill, we also took into account the views collected from members of the public and the professionals in the sector. We have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll defer to the SFC to take us through the presentation. Good morning, Chairman. A brief introduction to the background of the bill and our goal. OTC derivative is not financial products cleared in a clearing house. It involves rates and very often the contents of the agreement of the contract is decided by the 2 parties involved. In 2007-08, we had the financial tsunami, and CBS since then has become something we are familiar with. At that time, it was prevalent in the US, and AIG, a large corporation, after the financial tsunami, realized that it got lots of CBS. And the regulatory body did not quite know how much the AIG got and how much AIG stood to lose. So, at that time, there was this consensus that we need more information on OTC derivative and we need more transparency in this regard and we need more regulatory system. The G20 later had lengthy discussions on this, and it was agreed that not just in Hong Kong but across the globe we should have a reform on OTC derivative. Under the reform, we need a reporting mechanism to enhance transparency in the market. At present, there is no central body. We don't know what's behind the transaction. We don't know any requirements of the transaction. And now we require there should be centrally cleared through the transaction should be centrally cleared through central counterparties. And secondly, well, there should be OTC derivative transactions reported to trade repositories. Thirdly, standardized OTC derivative transactions to be traded on exchanges or electronic trading platforms where appropriate. So as to enhance transparency. And next, non-centrally cleared OTC derivative transactions should be subject to higher capital and marginal requirements. For financial corporates, when they are involved in non-centrally cleared OTC derivative transactions, there should be a higher capital for these corporations. This is to minimize risk. Risk on these to reduce risk in the system. Now, Hong Kong is a financial hub. And the OTC derivative market is inherently global and primarily operates cross borders. So Hong Kong must actively monitor global developments while considering our local conditions. In fact, other jurisdictions also consider their own local conditions. Now, we compare ourselves with the US and Europe. We have less transaction in OTC derivative market, and the products traded are also different. CDS is not as popular in Hong Kong as in other jurisdictions. These points have to be considered when we introduce reform. This slide is about the broad regulatory framework and the division of tasks between Hong Kong MA and SFC. The green areas here states that through new legislation introduced in the bill, the powers to HKMA and SFC will be enhanced. The power will be enhanced under the primary legislation. For the details of the amendment, they will be introduced through the subsidiary legislation. Global regulatory regime keeps changing because we see lots of changes in the OTC derivative market. That's why we have to look at the details. We have to monitor the details, which will be included in the subsidiary legislation.
You can see that on the top row, we have 4 categories of persons to be regulated. AIs or authorized institutions. They are authorized banks or deposit-taking companies are regulated by the Hong Kong MA under the banking ordinance. And then we have also got approved money brokers, AMBs. Well, they're engaged in brokerage businesses, and they're also regulated by Hong Kong MA. These 2 categories of persons will be regulated by the Hong Kong MA in relation to the new provisions. Another 2 types of persons are licensed, other prescribed persons, and also LCs. Well, other prescribed persons are not the financial institutions mentioned above. However, for whatever reasons, they engaged in OTC derivative transactions up to a certain threshold, and we believe they will make an impact on the overall risks, so they should also be regulated. So licensed corporations and other prescribed persons will be regulated by the SFC under the bill. This slide gives us an overview of the key features of the regime. Well, as I said, in enacting the bill, we must have regard to the characteristics of our local market. In the past 2 years, We have gone through 2 rounds of consultations with the trade, and I will also discuss with them the latest development in the market. So we propose that at the initial stage we'll only introduce clearing and reporting requirements. As regards electronic trading platforms, well, we will wait till the initial requirements are implemented, and then we will also discuss with the trade before these are introduced. The definition of OTC derivatives, as I said, would cover foreign exchange, interest rate, credit, equity, and commodity derivatives. The coverage is rather wide. And we will provide exclusions in respect of certain transactions that are traded on regulated markets. And for clearing and reporting requirements, they will only apply to certain types of interest rate swaps, IRS, and non-deliverable forwards only, NDF. So the requirements only apply to these 2 types of transactions. They are relatively more active in our derivative market in Hong Kong. So as we proceed, we will extend the requirements to other products. We will regulate products, and the bill will also regulate intermediaries, because these new regulated activities are not covered by the SFO. So we propose 2 newly regulated activities: Type 11 involving RA, and also Type 12, which will capture the activities of dealers and advisors and the activities of clearing agents, respectively. So there are financial institutions that cannot act as a clearing body, and they may have to employ the service of clearing agents, and SFC will detail later. And regarding existing Type 9 RA, asset management, and Type 7A, 7RA provision of automated trading services, well, they will also be expanded so as to cover OTC derivative portfolios and transactions, respectively. The next slide is about other provisions. Three categories of organizations will be regulated, and there are bodies that are not currently regulated, but their portfolio or the amount of exposure may increase our risks. So we will set out in the subsidiary legislation the amount of positions held by them, because the amount may change depending on the market situation, but our intention is to set it at a rather high threshold, because we'll talk about a potential systemic risk. So we don't want the threshold to be too low, because ordinary companies engaged in hedging might be inadvertently caught in making reportings, and we believe that is not really necessary. So we will discuss with the trade on the proposed threshold. And in other areas, or such as Basel III, there are requirements on capital of banks, and we will strengthen the regulation here as well. The requirement on margins, for instance, well, the international market is still discussing such issues, so we will keep in view the global developments before we introduce new provisions to tally world developments. All right. I'll now briefly talk about our proposed mandatory reporting obligation and also clearing obligation. We will set out in the bill persons that will be regulated and the products that will be regulated. If they are caught by these provisions, then all transactions have to be reported. The commodities involved, the consideration, the counterparties, and so forth. Such information will have to be reported. We've discussed with various regulators, and we've decided that Hong Kong MA should set up a trade repository. The SFC as well as the Hong Kong MA can make use of information in the DR to monitor whether such positions or activities would bring risk to the market. I mentioned the activity of agents. Usually, they will report directly to the Hong Kong ATR or indirectly through an agent. So both are acceptable under the bill. Now, on mandatory clearing obligation, again in the bill, we will set out what transactions have to be cleared. So the two parties cannot just agree on a contract. The contract has to be submitted to the central clearing agent for clearing. This is to reduce counterparty risk. The Hong Kong X is now preparing for a central clearing platform, and again it can be done through CCP or agent. I hand over to the CCP. Thank you. I'll briefly explain to you an important amendment in the bill. When we introduce a new regulatory regime, how do we regulate the intermediaries? SFC mainly regulate intermediaries engaged in securities and futures transactions. However, there isn't sufficient authority for us to regulate intermediaries of OTC derivatives. So we propose to introduce a new type of type 11RA. And it will involve dealing in OTC derivative products or advising on OTC derivative products. Such persons are required to get license type 11. Under the SFO, there are similar requirements for dealing and advising on securities and futures products. So we have made reference to the scope of regulated activities under the current SFO. Of course, in the light of special characteristics of OTC derivative market, we have introduced some changes here. For authorized banks or dealers or brokers, they are subject to the regulation of Hong Kong MA. So we propose that for new type 11RA, we will exclude AIs and AMBs. In future, they will continue to be overseen and regulated by the Hong Kong MA. And for non-AIs and non-AMBs, they will be regulated by SFC. New Type 12 RA clearing agency would like to introduce a mandatory clearing arrangement. So some specified OTC derivative transactions have to be done through a clearing agency. We believe some will have to do it through an agency, a clearing agency. So these intermediaries may have to deal with clients' assets. Now, if they have potential access to clients' asset, we have to regulate the market to ensure investors' interests. Because an agent may manage the assets of clients. So if the agency is only involved in the clearing of its own transactions, then it can be exempted. All right. We will also expand Type 7 RA and Type 9 RA to cover OTC derivatives. Well, Type 7 RA, well, when intermediaries are over automated transaction services, they have to acquire Type 7A license. We propose that Type 7RA will cover OTC derivative transactions as well. So intermediaries who wish to provide ATS to facilitate trading in OTC derivatives, well, they have to be licensed for the expanded Type 7RA. And Type 9RA asset management, we propose to expand the scope to include, well, if fund management companies would cover the management of portfolios of OTC derivative transactions, and Type 9 RA or a license Type 9 is required. And then, as I said, we're going to cover OTC derivative transactions. We understand that when new RAs are introduced for persons already engaged in these activities in the market, they will, of course, be affected. So we propose a transitional arrangement. To put it simply, once LegCo has approved the bill, then counting from the date of implementation, there will be a 6-month transitional period. During the 6 months, persons who have not acquired new licenses or expanded licenses can continue to engage in such activities. However, after the 6 months have lapsed, and they are no longer allowed to engage in such activities unless they have submitted an application to SFC within 3 months after commencement of the build, and will consider whether they have attained the basic requirements. Have they got sufficient experience? If yes, we'll give them a notification, and they'll be deemed to have been granted the license pending full processing of the application by us. So they'll be given transitional authority to continue with such activities. So this is to strike a balance. On the one hand, traders can continue with their business, and on the other hand, we'll have sufficient time to vet such applications. So there are quite a number of provisions in the bill on transitional arrangements. I'll quickly go to other important points of the bill. As mentioned by our colleague in Hong Kong MA, we will regulate intermediaries, and we'll also propose oversight of systematically important participants. Right, we call them systematically important participants if the positions are sufficient large, they may pose a significant impact on the market of Hong Kong should they fail. So we have to ensure that we have sufficient power to regulate them. We're worried that speculators or investors might hold substantial positions, and they may have a negative impact on our financial market should they fail. So we're proposing a threshold. If the positions they hold exceed a certain threshold, then they have to be registered with us, or the Hong Kong MA. During ordinary times, we do not have any regulatory requirements on them.
But
with the introduction of the bill, we can take certain action to ensure that these people, the SIPs, will not pose much impact on the Hong Kong financial market. And in the bill, we also address extreme situations. Under such situations, the SIPs will be asked not to increase the positions they hold, and in some extreme cases, they will be asked to reduce the positions they hold. Infrastructural development. And the SFC, local initiatives, CCP, we set up local CCP developed by Hong Kong Exchange, will be scrutinized by us, and the target launch date will be later this year. I still have several slides. Page 16, brief members on the development of local OTC CCP established by Hong Kong Exchange. Now, people are concerned that there will be very high risk in setting up this OTC CCP, and the business of the Hong Kong Exchange will be affected. But this clearing house is an independent one. In other words, for brokers not joining the clearing house, they do not have to bear any consequences should there be any problems with the clearing house. And when we process the application of the new OTC CCP, we will ensure they have sufficient risk management. It's only when they can reach a certain standard that the application will be granted. Apart from regulating the OTCD transactions, we also introduced some technical improvements under the bill. The improvements are not directly related to the OTCD transactions and market. Now, one of the technical improvements is about electronic filing. If positions held are over a certain level, the person or company holding the positions have to make declaration and disclosure. That can be done by mail to the Hong Kong Exchange, by email, by fax. But members may appreciate that it takes time for the Hong Kong Exchange staff to input the information received in the application, and it takes time. So we propose that the disclosure should be done via electronic means. That will speed up the processing time in the Hong Kong Exchange, and also it will speed up the time of publication. The second technical amendment is about court orders to recoup illegal gains from committing market misconduct offences. At present, the SFC can file a civil complaint, and the person violating the rules will be penalized in accordance to the law's result. And at present, the maximum fine is $10 million. Now, for someone who gains 40,000, even if we impose the maximum penalty, the person who broke the law will also gain $30 million. So we propose to amend the SFO and the OSCO to empower courts to make orders for the purpose of recouping illegal gains from committing a market misconduct offense. And with the introduction of the amendment, market misconduct will be covered. This is to enhance protection. Next, I'll come to the structure of the bill. We will introduce mandatory reporting, clearing, and trading obligations. And Part 3A, under Clause 9, we explain the powers of SFC. With the consent of Hong Kong MA, we can set out the details for governing mandatory reporting, clearing, and trading obligations. We can set down the rules under the framework. And Divisions 3 and 4 of Part 3A under Clause 9 is about designations of CCPs and trading platforms and relevant rule-making powers. Division 5 of Part 3A under Clause 9 are provisions related to SIPs. And when necessary, the SIPs will be asked not to increase the positions held. And a new Type 11RA, Type 12RA, and expanded Type 7RA and Type 9RA. They're under Schedule 5 to SFO under Clause 53. And we also provide transitional arrangements for the new activities and new components in new Schedule 11 under Clause 55. And the SFC also need power for disciplinary actions, and so Part 8 and Part 9 under Clause 15 to 37, and the new Division 1A to Part 16 under Clause 40 is about the necessary investigatory and disciplinary powers for Hong Kong MA and SFC. We also provide new definitions pertaining to the regulation of OTC derivative transactions, including a definition of OTC derivative product under Schedule 1 of Clause 52. All right, thank you for the introduction. 3 minutes to each members. All right, any questions? Mr. Sin Chung Kai? 2 questions. One comment and 1 question. I think the bill is complicated and technical. For the regulatory framework, it seems the government has not made any projection regarding the trading volume. There's no forecast, no projection in this regard. So according to your assessment, what do you think will happen in the future? All right, anyone else? which official can comment or respond? Let me take the question, and then SFC and Hong Kong MA can supplement. The second point, now after the introduction of the regulatory system, impact on the transaction volume on the OTC, the market, what will happen? Now, these are OTC derivative products, and at present we don't have any means to trace and follow the volume traded in this market. The SFC gave you some figures which show that the such transaction amount to only 1% is a small amount. We made our own investigation in coming up with the volume, and the figure is indicative. We, however, have higher transaction volume in foreign exchange because this product is simpler. For interest rate swaps, non-deliverable forwards, they will only be regulated later in the later stage. The MA will set up the TR later, and I hope after that we can have a clearer projection. Chairman, we had 2 rounds of consultation with the trade, and it's hard for us to make assessment. But members do not have to worry too much, because this is not just a move in Hong Kong alone. In major financial markets around the world, they are also implementing such reforms. And I think the trade are prepared psychologically in responding to the reforms, to the changes, because this is already happening around the world. All right, thank you. Mr. Ng Leung Seng. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, in fact, asked to hold a public hearing to listen to deputations. I hope the licensed banks groups and also Hong Kong AB and DOTC will be asked to join us. Yes, we go along with the suggestion, and we welcome different kinds of dialogue with the trade. And we welcome the suggestion of holding a deputation meeting under the BC. We are happy to give relevant information to the Secretariat for reference, and I think the meeting should also be opened up to members of the public.
Mr. Dennis Kwok. Well, in Europe and in the UK, the Financial Services Authority of the UK talked about risk mitigation obligations. We have read your paper as well as your slide presentation, and they're absent on this. I'd like to know whether this bill would cover risk mitigation obligations. SFC. Thank you. Well, I think we can look at it on various levels. For instance, specified OTC derivative transactions are required to be done through clearing counterparties. For instance, they have requirements on margin levels so as to monitor the credit risks of the persons concerned. So this is one form of risk mitigation. And some OTC derivatives are not standardized standards, so it may not be appropriate for them for transactions to take place through central counterparties. However, margins are always charged, and there is no international standard for that yet. If there is any standard, Hong Kong will certainly follow. So this is a global matter. Singapore, Australia, Japan, and even Europe and the US are doing very similar things. We don't want one region to be straighter than the other, because people will be drawn to go to other regions. So we do have regular discussions on our regulatory regime. We hope that there won't be conflicts, because people will be at loss as to what provisions to follow. So we do have risk mitigation measures. I hope the Law Society as well as the Bar Association will be invited to our public hearing. All right, any other members? If not, I'd like to consult members. Do we have to invite the public to comment on the bill? If yes, then we will either issue invitations to relevant organizations and district councils. Another option is to place an invitation for views on the website of the Legislative Council. So do we have to conduct a public hearing? Mr. Sin, you would like to speak? Yes, I agree with you. It is already good enough if we place an invitation on our website so that all members of the public can decide whether they want to come or not. I will wait for the chairman to return to Hong Kong, and I'll discuss with him what is the best time for that hearing. Well, since the chairman is absent, I think you can make the decision as the deputy chairman. I believe early September should be a good time, because in August we're on leave, and then we usually resume business in early September. So you are the deputy chairman. I think you're in a position to discuss with the Secretariat. All right, because if wait until the chairman is back, that would be a while away. All right, I will discuss with the Secretariat, and I will report the proposed schedule to you as soon as possible. Yes, I agree that we should invite the public to give views, and Mr. Leung Sing also named some organizations and suggested that they be invited to come to comment on the bill as well. All right, any other business? If not, do we have to fix the date for the next meeting? Well, we fix a date for the public hearing first, and then we meet with the administration and ask it to respond to views expressed by the public. All right, I'll see to that. Any other business, please? If not, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.